could you start by telling me your name
My name's David Chavez.
and just a little bit about you? I know that from what I've heard and what I've seen that you've worked in the industry for 15 years. You're a music festival curator, event organizer, founder, and artistic director at Sound Culture, DJ, music producer, member of Future Roots crew. Like, you do so much. Is there anything else aside from that that you also do or work on?
So with Future Roots, I co-run a record label, and technically now I am a published I'm a published writer. I have a piece in the Quarantine Times, and then another piece coming out in Contratiempo sometime soon. So, amateur writer, I guess.
That's awesome. That's super exciting. How does it feel to work on these new, I guess, mediums, or try these new things?
I think sometimes it can be scary because it's new territory, and in particular with like the writing stuff. I've always been told I was a good writer, but I've never really written anything, let's say, for like anyone to read besides in school. And so knowing that I'm not a typical writer probably like is scary for me, because I don't know how I fare compared to someone else who's been doing it for a while. But hopefully I have something important to say, and I have an authentic voice to say it in. And I feel like that's kind of been my philosophy with everything I do, right? Music and just all of my endeavors are just always about having something to say, and not trying to be anything else or anyone else but myself, and coming at things with my own perspective and my own set of experiences. So I think that is sort of grounds me a little bit, and sort of gives me the courage to sort of try these new things and take those risks.
For sure. That's awesome. And moving a little bit into, I guess, more music, or things that you have had more practice in, or could you describe to me a little bit about what your average workday looked like pre-COVID-19, so around January or February of 2020?
Yeah, so like February of 2020, I was probably really in the thick of finalizing my season for the city of Chicago. I work for the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, and I curate the Millennium Park Music Series and the House Music Festival, and I co-curate the Chicago World Music Festival, and I work with other colleagues on other projects like professional development, workshops and conferences and things like that. And so I was probably finalizing a lot of my bookings for the year around that time. Going into the office every day, probably writing contracts, sending artists their offers, submitting paperwork for deposits, things like that, collecting marketing assets from artists for our press releases. Yeah, I'm having meetings with partners and, finalizing details on, programs or conferences, things like that. February is a pretty busy time for me typically.
And as artistic director and a festival curator for the city of Chicago, how have you been able to open up conversations and bring forward the music industry in the city?
So when I first started with the Cultural Center with DCASE, I actually started by opening up the first music office of the city. So it was a music office that was to be a liaison between city government and the music industry at large in Chicago. So it was, developing relationships with music venues and recording studios, record labels, festival organizers, promoters, artists, variety of people. And so part of that was really trying to figure out how the city could be more of service to the music industry, giving them information about what things we had that they could benefit from, like our grants program, for example. For a long time, we were having a hard time getting musicians and musical artists to apply for our individual artist grants program, because I think they didn't understand that they actually qualified, that this wasn't just for visual artists, but for any kind of artist, right? And so we intentionally put together a couple of information sessions about the grant, where we invited musicians and we had them hosted at music venues, just to sort of like, you know, get the industry familiar with the fact that they can get money from the city for their project, for even like recording an album, right? For paying for studio time, or pressing, you know, like vinyl, or paying for the artwork, or things like that, right? And several people actually applied and got out, you know, or had their albums paid for by the city of Chicago. And so things like that were what I was working on. A lot of professional development, also in helping to provide emerging artists in the city. Things around, you know, licensing and songwriting, publishing, marketing. You know, we had a series of workshops that had to do with the business of being an artist, a music artist. And so, you know, really providing that kind of information for free for people to connect with and learn from was a good way for me to sort of, you know, help the industry. You know, after that, I moved into programming. And so that was where I saw more of a platform to showcase artists in the city, maybe that didn't get the kind of commercial recognition that other artists were getting. Being able to put, you know, a good Chicago artist in front of a touring artist at Millennium Park, for example, is a good way to get them sort of some exposure, right? And a new audience locally. Things like that. You know, some of the commissions that we've done is, you know, talking to artists about, you know, what is their dream project? What have they always wanted to do, you know, with their musical career, in terms of like making a statement or creating a piece of work that isn't so much bound by like commercial success, but just artistic sort of vision, and then giving them the funds to actually do that work and present it, you know, on one of our stages. And so that's been really rewarding for me, because I get to see, you know, it's not a creative thing for me as an artist myself to do something, but to provide, like, you know, the opportunity to an artist to sort of, you know, fulfill that vision for themselves, I think is something that's very rewarding to me as well.
And what would you say is the importance for, you know, being able to provide this platform and this service, these tools for local artists, and being able to connect with your community in these spaces, like creating festivals and when creating events and collectives?
You know, I come from I've always come from a nonprofit community organizing sort of background. You know, the kind of art that I make and that I like isn't so much commercial. And I think a lot of the industry tends to be at the will of commercialism, right? You know, it's about how many albums you have, how many records you've sold, how many fans you have. Even if you're not a good artist, you know, it almost becomes more about the buzz of you as an artist than your work. And there's too many platforms in the city that operate, you know, with that in mind, right? They want to know how many people you can bring to an event, right? How many fans you have, even if your work isn't amazing, right? And so, like, I think, you know, what we do is, you know, from a civic standpoint, is to provide this platform to present good art to people for free, to have access to good art, right? Regardless of the the commercial success of the artist or of their latest recording, right, or project. And I think that's important because then we're really weighing the quality, the value of the artist on the quality of their work, not so much on the quantity of their commercial success. And so I think that there's a big difference there. It means that we have the ability to bring people to a stage that wouldn't normally have a chance to get to a stage in any other instance, right, in Chicago. It means that the artist can gain the experience of performing in a professional setting like a city event where they may not have that otherwise, where they get to perform in front of an audience, right, that's not their own audience, that might help inform them on how to better present themselves as an artist, or win over an audience, and gain new fans. It's a very altruistic way of programming that isn't bound by marketing or buzz or capitalism, to say it bluntly, right? It's different. It's a different way of doing that. And I think it's important, that the city have this sort of perspective and can provide these opportunities for artists. Because otherwise, I'm just afraid to think of, what would happen, really. You would only then hear about the people that are good at marketing themselves, the people that are only good at making friends, or are maybe extroverts, right? And are good networkers, and but you may never hear of this genius artist or this artist that has something really important to say.
And for you, what was it like going from freelance and putting together smaller festivals and events to organizing the Chicago House Music Fest and being the Millennium Park Music Series coordinator?
I mean, I think I've been at this point I've been probably producing events for a long time, more than 15 years. I mean, the first event I really produced was a rave when I was 18 years old with two other friends. And, I did not know what I was doing, but by doing it and having a team, two other friends that were working on it with me, we figured it out as we went. And that, I think, gave me the courage to continue, to do these things, and to know that if I don't know something, I could figure it out. It gave me that confidence of problem solving, right? Okay, let's figure it out. Let's ask somebody. Let's, what is someone else doing about this problem, or how is somebody else doing this? And so I think every time I organize something, it was a learning experience, and it continues to be to this day a learning experience, right? I'm still learning about presenting things. I'm still learning about organizing, and so some things are very fundamental, right? And those fundamental things you learn, doing the smallest events, right? That carry over into doing large festivals. Of course, the scale of things changes, and the maybe the number of problems that come up increases because the operation is bigger. But you learn to account for that. You learn to think ahead 2 and 3 steps. You learn to take notes of from your last event. Yeah, it's a progress. You can't overnight start to do something and do it well. It takes practice, like everything else, right? And the key is to learn from your mistakes and to get up when you fall down, right? Is to and not be afraid to take chances also. I think I've always taken chances, with what I do, and I think it's just because I know that it's not the end of the world if I make a mistake. I've had shows that haven't done well, that have bombed, that have completely sucked. but I learned from those, and I have fewer of those shows now, later in my career. But it also, by doing a lot of things like that and sort of growing slowly, I've also learned how to judge things a little better, scenarios and risks and things like that.
And do you remember the last musical event that you attended before quarantine and all hell came?
Yeah, I was at the Hideout. We went to see, what's that group's name? From New York.
Gumbo Chimbita.
Yeah. Gumbo Chimbita. But yeah, that was the last show I saw. I was at the Hideout on a Friday, I think. And that was, they closed right after that. And then shortly after that, the whole city closed. And that was the last show I went to. And it's almost as if we knew that things were going to be in a pause. So everybody was like being cautious around each other, but also like almost like, like hugging each other and saying, let's we're gonna get through this, and we'll see you soon. But it was almost like a despedida to some degree for a lot of people. But yeah, it was a great show. And it was a special night because I remember it vividly. It's the last real concert that I went to.
And how would you say that the music industry has been hit and most impacted by the pandemic?
I mean, it's really been decimated, right? Like, the whole industry really, not the whole industry, but a large portion of it really is based on live events. It's based on gathering. It's based on, artists who are performing, they make money on tours. They make money on selling merchandise on tours, at shows. Maybe they make money on records too, but most of it is through touring. Promoters, music venues, festivals. I mean, their business model is to gather people for concerts. They sell tickets, they sell drinks, they sell other things, merchandise as well. I think people being quarantined also has prevented bands from, to some degree, like practicing together or recording together. Some people have had to, because of the loss of income, have had to move back to like their parents' houses or have, moved with other friends. And so, when your income disappears like that, it's hard, it's hard to bounce back, and in particular, you think about a lot of working artists also have other part-time jobs, right? Like they work as in retail, or they work, as in restaurants, they work in other things that require, gathering or require that's entertainment or food and beverage based, right? And so those things also were affected. So it's kind of like a double whammy, right? I know someone that, like they were a DJ and worked at restaurants, and that's how they made their living. And both of those income streams completely disappeared. Yeah, it's been bad all around for everyone. I think the only one who's benefited from it has been like the streaming services.
Yeah,
because everyone's like all of a sudden
moving into digital, like this Instagram, TikTok. Now it's like this new part of the music industry that's blowing up in this new way. And what do you think about that, moving into this new age of how music is being listened to and digested?
I think, it's never going to take the place of live in-person performance, right? And events. But I think it has opened a new avenue for artists and events, venues, and festivals to connect with a broader audience. I think the digital stuff maybe isn't going to go away so easily. Like, we're still going to see things being streamed, but live events that are being streamed, we're still going to see people doing things online as performances, perhaps, because also the number of things where people can perform at is not going to come back so robustly as it was before the pandemic, right? It's going to be a slow return. I mean, venues again are like going to be the last to open. They're the first closed and the last to open. Festivals are, you know, once a year, you know, and so I think that like you're still going to see that happening. You know, I've seen a lot of things online where there's concerts that you buy a ticket to and watch a show online. I think that might go away to some degree. Also, like, you know, it's seasonal, right? So we're coming into summer, at least in Chicago, right? We're coming into summer where there's going to be a lot more things to do outdoors. Even if it's not going to concerts, it's meeting with friends at a park or at a restaurant or whatever the case is. So there's going to be, you know, sporting activities, things like that. There's going to be a lot of competition already for attention. And so I don't know that we'll see it. I don't know that we'll see a lot of things online, but from like individual artists doing things. But I think that the live streaming and the rebroadcast aspect of what we've seen is going to remain to a large degree. Yeah, and Chicago is, you know, a city well known for its diversity and cultures, musical styles. You know, how you said, like, bringing that experience live in person and bringing it into the nightlife. How do you think that's gonna look coming back, and if so, under what regulations? As far as regulations, I think they're gonna apply to everyone, right? It doesn't matter what kind of event it is. People are gonna find ways to gather regardless. You know, I think that, and we've seen it this past summer even. Like, I mean, I've seen things happening in parks where, you know, obviously they shouldn't have been happening, but they happened, right? People are having picnics, you know, with like more than a jukebox, you know, more than like a boombox. That's, you know, they have speakers out, and they're gonna make it happen. I don't know, you know, culturally, you know, I hope that more cultural activity happens again like it used to in the city. You know, I think it's important for like us to continue doing the World Music Festival, and even if it's a few concerts, you know, I think that cultural connection is important for people. I'm imagining what it's going to actually look like when, you know, a few months from now. I think back in, you know, initially in March, we thought 2-3 weeks we'll be closed and we'll all come back to normal. What is it going to look like a month from now, 2 months from now? And at this point, we're a year from now. Like the reopening. Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be slow. You know, I think, you know, right now, you know, the city is in phase 4, which I think the city guidelines only allow for 100, you know, gatherings of 100 people outdoors. And I think those are technically supposed to be seated gatherings. If they're following the restaurant guideline, they've laid out for restaurants for outdoor seating. You know, I know that the governor, you know, just recently was announcing, you know, his bridge sort of concept of a certain percentage of people need to be vaccinated before capacities open up. But I don't know, you know, it's hard to say, you know, if large scale events could happen this year. You know, people are planning them, you know, they're hoping that it's going to happen. And you know, street festivals are submitting, you know, for the permission to do a street festival in the city. But you know, how they're going to manage, you know, COVID mitigation and how, you know, public health is a whole nother thing. I don't know, you know, like, how is like a, you know, like a Lollapalooza or something gonna maintain social distancing for people? How are they gonna police that, right? Or like, you know, people wearing masks. I don't know, you know, that's a lot of people, right, to try and police. And and I've seen other places around the world do things like, do rapid testing at the door before they let people inside. Everyone is, sometimes you can go to a restaurant or something and they'll take your temperature, right? And that's one thing, but that doesn't necessarily tell you if you have COVID or not. It just tells you that you have a fever, and they're not going to let you in if you have a fever. But yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be tricky. I don't know how it's going to happen. I think that you'll see a lot of smaller scale things happening and being permitted to happen. I think that you're going to see people sort of doing more things more frequently at a smaller scale. Maybe more like more series type things instead of festivals, or more picnics and more, these kinds of things where they can spread out an audience, perhaps. Like September is going to be also, it's the month right now that everyone's looking to do their events in, because they think it's the safest before they get into unpredictable weather in October, and so it could be that the city just blows up with activities in September, or if no one gets a permit, then it doesn't happen that way. If we as as Chicagoans can't get our act together in terms of getting vaccinated and following the rules, we're never gonna get to that point, and I think it's a race, right? It's like, everything is so tied to like COVID, and it's hard to plan anything. I don't, I'm having trouble, and I work for the city. I can't imagine, anyone else trying to figure this out.
And as a curator and an organizer, often inviting local talent, bringing even international artists overseas to events of hundreds and thousands of people, what would you say are the most important next steps to activate the music industry again? We're going to be focusing all on local artists this year.
I think travel restrictions are still going to be an issue for international artists. While we're starting to get vaccinated at higher rates, other countries are not. Our neighbors in Canada are behind us. Our neighbors in Mexico are far behind us. There's a lot of talk about, even just getting on planes and having these vaccination passports or cards proving that you've been vaccinated to travel, or to, get on cruise ships and things like that. I think that the travel aspect of the industry is going to suffer for a while still. I don't think that's going to really come back until next year. I think maybe we'll see a lot of people doing more things with local artists and national artists, like to have somebody come in from New York or Miami or LA or any place regionally, right? Like Minnesota, or, these kinds of things, things that are drivable, things that are quick flights. Domestic travel, I think, is going to be more likely to happen, but the way we think about it, at the city, is that our local artists here still need support from us, right? They're still today not working, and so why would we bring in someone from New York and pay them thousands of dollars instead of someone from our own backyard? In particular, if we're not trying to attract a lot of people to events because we can't have a lot of people, it kind of defeats the purpose, and so I think it's going to be a lot of local and regional and national things until next year, unfortunately. But it's about time that we pay more attention to our local artists anyway. I think that this is forcing us to really look in our own backyard and discover the hidden gems and the talent that actually lives here. And again, I think the industry is all about, in general, creating buzz and attracting an audience and presenting people that aren't from here that I think this will help sort of introduce them again to people who are here.
And why do you think it's important to be inclusive with your musical selection, highlighting local talent and marginalized communities?
Again, it's about creating platforms and points of exposure for people, right? It's about like giving somebody who's in Chicago, who is a good artist, a shot at an opportunity to perform in front of people that may not know who they are. It's important, I think, for us to be diverse and culturally diverse in what we present, because again, it's not seen often in the for-profit mainstream music industry, right? We're seeing a lot of Latinx making waves in the mainstream, but there's still artists that are part of sort of a mainstream machine, and I think to present people who are culturally different from you on stage is important for a public, because it gives people an experience with them, even if they're not talking to them. It gives them a chance to sort of see this person and the art they present and connect with them in a way that, as an audience, they may not connect with otherwise, right? And helps, I think, to break down maybe stereotypes and prejudice and things like that, that is prevalent in our society. And so I always value, really those experiences when I have them myself as an audience member, when I travel to go to a showcase, in Latin America somewhere, or in Europe somewhere, or in Asia or something like that. There's something that that I understand because of that experience, about that culture, but also about myself, and I think that's important to have. It's important for people to have that in the city.
And what would you say is the most significant part of being in this industry and living through something that we never have before?
I think it's seeing how it's being a part of an effort to bring people back to work, to bring artists back to work, right? It's being part of like an operation that fully understands that we need to employ more artists. We need to value their work more. We need to create more opportunities for them to not only like perform, but also to learn and to evolve as artists, to be more successful in the industry, to connect with each other, but also to see that community of artists also help each other. That is, it's been beautiful to see that, artists helping one another, get through things, collaborating with each other, recommending them for other things, I was talking to somebody the other day who, was offering me actually a DJ gig. And, I was like, well, probably, give it to somebody else who might need it more. I'm employed. I don't need the money. But somebody else probably does. Someone else is probably struggling to make ends meet. And I'm seeing that kind of thing being paid forward throughout the industry. Like Civil, for example, the Chicago Independent Venue League, got a grant from the city to produce a fundraiser that ended up raising, I don't know, a lot of money to help support the staff of Chicago venues. It's like they're the last to open, but yet they're still also very concerned about the people that work for them who are out of jobs, and so like to see that kind of thing is significant for me and special, and it kind of reaffirms to me why I'm in this community of the arts.
And if you could go back to a year from now to that last musical event that you attended, what would you tell yourself in that moment?
I don't know. I would tell myself, make sure that you tell everyone you know who's an artist how much you value them. Reach out if they need something, whatever, even just a phone, even just a talk. I think there's so many people that have gone through ups and downs. I mean, we all have, right? But I mean, can you imagine, like, you know, being an artist that depends on, you know, what you eat and where you sleep depends on your work and being able to perform for people, and that being taken away. Like, I can't imagine what that is like, right? So yeah, I think I would tell myself to reach out more to people who I thought maybe are having a hard time, or just to check in. I mean, I check in with people all the time. Just, you know, let me know if you need something, how's it going? You know, like even a text message, Facebook message helps and goes a long way. People appreciate that, like, you know, someone is thinking of them, you know, they appreciate that you have a concern for their well-being, and it's important, you know, it's part of, you know, it's part of being human. Yeah, we should do that with everyone, not just artists, right? That's how we should be as people.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to say or to share?
I guess I'm not sure who your audience is for the show, but you know, if there are artists out there, you know, I would say hang tight. Things are going to get better, you know, but also reflect on this time and figure out in your own, you know, life and career how to diversify sort of your income as an artist, you know, not just performing, but, you know, what other skills do you have that you could, you know, make of service to other people. You know, to anyone who's an emerging artist, like, hopefully we don't see this kind of situation ever again. So don't be afraid to jump in and be an artist, you know, and after this is over. Yeah, to everyone else, like, make sure that you support artists as much as possible. You know, if you have the means, buy their album on Bandcamp, you know, buy their digital music, you know, whatever you can, donate when they do their next Instagram concert, you know. They need it, and they're only doing that because they need it, you know. And we should try and as much as possible really support our artists.
Thank you so much for sharing, for speaking with me.